under our first module, again, which is called creating a high performance, which is what you do first in corporate, right? You build your team, right? I don't know how many of y'all have been at this level or not, but if you have, feel free to speak up because I'll share my experiences so this will make sense. But I also need you to share your experiences if you've been down this route before, running a project. Within creating a high-performing team with the course content, the first thing you do is build your team. That makes sense, right? It didn't used to say that with the old exam. The next thing you want to do is define team rules, because once you get a group of people together, you need some rules in place. If you're autocratic and working by yourself, that's easy. But just because you think you're cool, everybody else doesn't. So there has to be team ground rules amongst 15, 20 people. Then you want to negotiate project agreements. Well, what type of agreements? We'll get to that in a second. You as a servant leader and as a transformational leader that's over that project, you want to empower your team and the stakeholders along with it. We'll talk about the distinction between those. And there's not, well, then you want to train your team members and your stakeholders, you meaning you, the project manager. Then you want to engage and support virtual teams, which we've already done now because of COVID, right? And then your job is to also build a shared understanding about whatever project that you're governing or being a servant leader to, right? So this is our module, and these are the topics under that module. There's 7 of them. So we're now on topic F of module 1, engage and support virtual teams. This should not take long at all because we're already working in virtual teams, right? So there's nothing new that this module adds. I've taught it enough to know there's nothing here that's testable that you can add to it. So we'll just kind of breeze through that. If you got questions, which you shouldn't, just feel free. Okay. Okay, some of the tools and techniques, or tools and outcomes. Some of our tools used in engaging and supporting virtual team is communications, a communication plan, variance analysis. We'll talk about this. That's a new phrase or a new concept. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then PM powers, what should come out of some of the outcomes, in addition to some of the tool sets, is collaboration technology, engagement assessments, project or resource calendars. Now, we'll put all this together as we go through this module, okay? So one of our primary, I think a few of you guys already said you're leading teams remotely, virtually already. So you kind of see the difference in, well, you probably already used to that anyway. I'm used to being face-to-face with my teams. I've yet to lead a team 100% virtually, right? Other than teaching, instructing class, right? So collaboration technology, you guys were born in this, so you're already pretty astute in Zoom and everything else. But one of the things that we use as PMs, as you're already doing with virtual teams, while we're technology enables us to plan and collaborate, we still have to discuss things like, we covered a little bit yesterday, emotional intelligence, still engaging with your team, understanding your team, and some of the topics before this, team assessments, as well as individual assessments. So collaboration tools, as it lists, might include things like, shared task boards. There are tool sets that they use an adaptive system for shared task boards, messaging and chat boards. You guys are already using this stuff, so this is nothing new to you. Okay. Again, one of the things that we have to keep doing as project managers when we have virtual teams is keep communicating those shared goals. Make sure everyone understands the purpose of the project, and make sure there's clarity on those roles and expectations. Who was that is leading the team already? I forgot who that was. I don't know if I wrote that down. Somebody's already leading the team remotely. Who was that?
Yeah, I'm leading a team remotely.
Okay. I think I asked that yesterday, but based on what we're talking about now, kind of reiterate what you kind of told us yesterday. So there's, in terms of your challenges and or if there are any challenges, I mean.
Yeah, of course, there is challenges everywhere. So yes, initially when we started, as you mentioned just now, the communication and collaboration is the main thing, but we are not meeting in like face-to-face, but we have some misunderstanding, miscommunications happen initially till you build a strong communication and trust in between the team. as you said, we have a common SharePoint, common inbox to work on. Even though we work remotely, we know what is coming to the team, not to one person. So we work as a team and we know what each person is doing because we have a shared Airtable, shared SharePoint. That's a common SharePoint where we give the QRGs and everything in one place. And then we have the data at one place. And yeah, we use the Microsoft Teams and also common inbox, as I mentioned. So those are the things which we use commonly other than our individual stuff so that we have a constant communication with each other. So yes, initially when we are setting up all these things and forming the goals and objectives, we had some challenges, but once we have everything in place, we have new things come up every day to maintain the quality and come up with the new challenges and goals. Other than that, I feel like there is nothing different with the face-to-face team and the remote team. We don't feel like we are remote because we have everything together to work on. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, who is this with again, if you don't mind me asking?
This is with the public health department.
Public health. Okay. Can you talk about the project? What's the project? What's the end goal of this project and how's it counts?
So I'm working on a case investigation team for the infectious diseases. So I worked on the AIDS and then I worked on the COVID. So COVID project. So that's why we are wrapping up with this project as well, because the COVID, it's not going to go completely, but of course that we used to do the case investigation. We talk to we have a team whom we train. So as a team lead, my role is to train our team of people and provide them with the various resources and opportunities, what we have, and give them the skills what exactly, because they're all not from the healthcare background, but we have to provide them what exactly is the HIPAA violation and how to communicate with the people, on how to get the data, what exactly we needed for the public health from the people who have been exposed to the infectious disease. So we need to extract all that information. There is some personal information and everything. So we need to train them, provide them support, make them confident enough to talk to the person. So whoever goes for testing with the COVID test, the public health has the data, and we get that data from the public health. And we have to communicate with that person to ask about their hospitalizations, what exactly is going on, what is their symptomology and everything, to find the epidemiological data and everything and see how exactly, what is the trend and how to modify, what exactly helps them. And if they are in need, we provide them the clinical support. We also provide them with the resources for not only before we were doing for the isolation and quarantine, we were providing support financially as well as motor support and also rental assistance. So those are all we have different departments. Yeah. We not only do the investigation, we provide them with the IQSP, which is the isolation and quarantine support, for the rental, financial assistance, clinical assistance, those kind of things. So we have to coordinate between different teams and project managers because it's a multiple project. It's not just one part. So we need to communicate with the financial team, rental assistance team, as well as with the clinician team, and also with the case investigation team and with the public health and the California Public Health Department as a whole to see what is the modifications each week, because it used to change every week. It's not constant because, as you know, there was the guidelines which was for 14 days, 10 days, 7 days. So, yeah. So with those are the challenges I can say. We were doing one thing and then next week it is a different criteria, different guidelines we have to provide for the people and everything. So yes, those are one of the challenges I can say.
Okay, it's very interesting. So this is just confined to California, or is it?
No, it's just for California. I didn't work for the Texas, but one of my friends worked for the Texas and they had the same procedure. Of course, yes, with the case investigation team as a team lead, yeah.
Okay, very interesting. Oh, congratulations, by the way. I saw you won some kind of award out there on LinkedIn. Student.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. What was the name of that award?
Yeah, that's a Student Chancellor Award.
Yeah. Congrats to you. Okay. Anybody else got a project they want to share with us? So nobody's working. No one's working on anything. That's fine. I'm just teasing. Okay, but thanks for sharing that with us. Okay, back to business at hand here, which is that was pretty good. That's a lot of info. All right, so virtual team member engagement. We just covered that. I mean, she covered a lot of that based on what this information is here. Again, teams communicate better face to face. We know that, but as just how you pronounce it again? Prathema. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Just mentioned the way they have their setup and did it start out like? Have you been with that project from the beginning?
Yes, I was a startup for that. Yeah, I was there from the beginning. So there was nothing when we started. We started as like a 2 team leads, and then at the end we had like 30 team leads. And yeah, it became a big project at the end. Yes.
Okay. Good. Good. So again, we just covered most of everything we're talking about in terms of virtual team member engagement. You guys are already doing that. There's nothing new to add. On the adaptive side with Scrum and the Agile framework, Kanban, they're already using task boards there. So that's huge, as you can see from the managed style. As we read yesterday from the Agile Manifesto, one of the main things is being co-located, but they have fixed that in terms of Prathema and her group is pretty much doing what an Agile or Scrum group would do now under the COVID restrictions, right? But the virtual boards, task boards, Kanban boards, that's pretty common on the adaptive side. So from a communication standpoint, from not the word communicate. Now we'll cover this a little later. There's going to be a question on your exam. Every time the word communication comes up, it makes me think of that. It asks, and it's been on some of the new exams as well. As you know, in project management, communication is a huge, whether it's written, formal, informal, or verbal. It'll ask you what percentage of the time, this is going to be on your exam, what percentage of the time does a project manager spend communicating? And the answer is 90%. Whether it's verbal or written, we spend 90% of our time communicating, right? And that's pretty true, right? That's 100% of our job is communicating something out or gathering information, right? So anyway, we already know that communication is the key, so that's not going to haggle on that too much. Our communications plan, if you look at on your process chart, I think it's under 10.1, plan communications. And that every time I point to something on the process chart, when it says like 10.1, 10.2, there's a corresponding chapter in your PMBOK. So again, I mentioned this yesterday, instead of reading PMBOK, you reference PMBOK with this corresponding topics, like communications plan is 10.1, right? Now, how you know this? Well, you just look it up, right? It's in the table of contents. PMBOK is easy to follow. It looks just like that process chart. So anyway, they're talking about here about creating a communications management plan, right? Some of the components would include team meeting times, tools to track work status, frequency of reports. This will come along with your team charter on how you communicate, share team hours, preferred communication approaches, and so forth. Here are some of the guidelines for virtual team member engagement, again, per your exam that you have coming up. Read these real quick so we can move on. I don't read the guidelines. I'll let you read those and then we move on to the next topic. Again, that's the reason why I just breezed through virtual team member, because we're already engaged in that. We've been doing that now for a couple of years because of COVID. Okay. Okay, calendar tools. Again, we covered this earlier in a couple of topics earlier. From the adaptive standpoint, we have time box meetings. Everything is time box there. But from a traditional project management standpoint, I know I've done it before. Shared calendars where we have planning meetings. I think Prathima mentioned SharePoint. I don't know. Does anybody else use SharePoint? What kind of message or shared knowledge board do you guys use? Anybody else? I've used SharePoint a lot on my projects.
SharePoint. I use SharePoint also, and we use Microsoft Teams for communication and calendaring.
Okay.
You use
So we're all
WebEx
Teams.
WebEx Teams.
WebEx Teams. Okay.
Microsoft Teams.
Slack.
Okay. What about tools for document sharing, knowledge databases?
So
We use
our
OneDrive,
Say that again.
OneDrive, and Microsoft
OneDrive?
Teams.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
we use SharePoint, but since we migrated over Teams, there SharePoint and Teams are just connected on the back end, so we can
Right.
still just upload documents to Teams, but it still houses it back up in SharePoint.
SharePoint. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, we all do know cloud data resides on a physical server, right? I had one of my nieces or nephews, they thought the data was actually out in the clouds, literally. And no, it physically resides on a server. You can't get around that, right? A lot of people don't know that. They actually literally believe that. But anyway, variance analysis, this really doesn't have a place here. I always felt that every time I teach this class, this is kind of out of place, but we're going to run into it down the line, so we might as well talk about it. So as a team works, as it says, you produce variance analysis such as accuracy of team estimates. Now, when they say team estimates, they're really talking about time and cost, right? Because again, I think Maria mentioned this yesterday. The main objective, once we get a project started and kicked off, the main objective, there's going to be scope, right? You're doing something, you're going to produce something, some kind of result, some kind of service, or some kind of product, right? The one Prometheus is working on is, I think it sounds like more of results, right? But whether it's documents or whatever, so there's going to be a scope, and initially you're going to develop a project management plan, right? That serves as your baseline. We're going to talk about that stuff later, but it serves as a baseline. In other words, here's our plan. This is what we started out doing, right? And then as the project progresses, what happens is you get all these problems, people, quality, it just problems. And that's what the variance comes in. You guys are probably you're in the medical fields. So that variance, right? So when they're speaking about accuracy and variance analysis, all they're talking about variances from a project standpoint, variance of scope, variance of time, variance of cost, and variance of quality, right? So you can see why I kind of don't understand why they put that here, but nonetheless, it's here. It's going to be coming up throughout. From a retrospective standpoint, now every time you hear the word retrospective, we're talking about adaptive or Scrum and Agile, right? That's why they have that in that little loop that you guys saw yesterday, that iterative cycle. You produce something, let the customer check it out, then have a retrospective. You produce something, let the customer check it out, and have a retrospective, right? Well, on the adaptive side, that's caught pretty early. But in traditional project management, you go way down the line building something, and then you let the customer look at it. I mean, way down the line. That's a huge difference, right? That's why variance analysis is so important on the traditional side. Best practices in terms of virtual teams, which is actually whether it's virtual or not. Personally, start with the team charter, then adapt behaviors to reinforce collaboration and promote visibility. Prioritize team goals. This is the same you would do, you know, as Prometheus said, the same thing we would do in traditional project management as well. So it's nothing different,